This is Jenna Burt, host of the Confessions of a Military Spouse podcast. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hey everyone, it's Selena, and you are listening to Stories from Planet Earth. And today we have on Shivani.
Hi.
Thank you so much for taking some time to hop on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Selena. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm super excited too. And I really appreciate it too because I know that we're in completely different time zones, so I'm glad you were flexible with figuring out a time that worked for both of us.
Yeah, I'm glad you chose a really comfortable time for me, but you had to wake up early in the morning. But so sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. I have no problem waking up early. So that kind of leads me to my first question. Where are you from and where are you currently based?
So I'm from India. I was born in a city called Vizag, Visakhapatnam, and after that I moved to a city called Hyderabad. I'm currently in Hyderabad.
And so we met whenever you were attending Colorado State University. What made you decide to come to a school in the United States, and what was that process like?
So actually I was never planning to study in the United States. It just happened. So what happened was I finished my 12th grade and I was writing a few entrance exams to get into colleges in India, and I was not getting into a lot of the colleges, and the ones I got into I didn't really like. And then I started exploring other options and what options are there abroad. So which is when I started looking at universities in USA, and I applied to a few colleges and I got into Colorado State and I got a scholarship. So that's why I decided, okay, maybe this could be a good option to come to college in Colorado. But it was all pretty random. Like I never planned anything. It just, I heard that there is a good course for veterinary college in Colorado. So that's why I planned to move there. But funnily enough, when I came to CSU, I didn't go through with the vet school program. After the first semester, I realized I don't think I'm gonna make it. So yeah, after first semester, I decided to change my majors to wildlife conservation, which pretty much worked for me because I wanted to do that since the beginning anyway. I just didn't know that I wanted to do that. And the fact that I came to CSU and learned about all these other majors that were available for me, I think that was the most amazing part about me coming to CSU. I wouldn't have had that kind of an option in India.
Yeah, so ultimately it was a good decision, even though it wasn't initially what you wanted.
Yeah, it was an amazing decision. I don't think I'll ever regret studying in United States because it was such a culture change which I needed. So I changed so much as a person being away from my family for those 5 years and being for studying in a place that I had no idea about and studying in a different culture. The university system was so different from what we have in India. The education system was different. So that is something I absolutely will not ever regret in my life. I'm glad I studied there. And I think you can relate to, because CSU is a pretty good university.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved my time at CSU. It was a great experience all the way through.
Yeah.
So what exactly was it like just starting anew in a completely foreign country and in a culture that's so different from the one you're used to?
So I've had a really hard time. So for the first year, I stayed in a dorm, and it was quite a culture change. Honestly, I couldn't talk to people. So what happened was, when I grew up in Vizag, I was in a school where it was pretty strict, you'd say. Like, girls weren't allowed to talk to guys and all kinds of stuff. It's weird when you think about it now, but back when we were in school, we were not allowed to talk to boys. And from that, I went to Hyderabad, where there was a culture change there. I wasn't as bad as me back in school, like me not being able to talk to boys and other people, but I was still an introvert when I came to United States. So some part of my introvertedness came with me when I came to US. And it was hard. Like, the first year, I couldn't talk to anyone in my dorm. When I was walking in the hallway, I used to be very conscious of what people would be thinking of me, because I was just not comfortable talking to these people, and they were all friends on my floor. Everyone were each other's friends. So it was just very awkward. I always felt out of place. What really changed was when I met a few Indian girls, and few of the Indian communities in CSU. They were very welcoming. So it was really important for me to find a sense of family in a place that I didn't find familiar. So once I found these people, initially I clung on to them, and later on I just got very comfortable with talking to everyone and talking to people in my class. I think from sophomore year was when I started to feel more and more comfortable being in the States. But the first year living in the dorm, it was pretty awkward. And I sometimes wish that I was a little more open to completely experience the dorm culture, like all the parties and everything. But I missed out on that, but it's okay.
Yeah, you got there eventually. And I think that from the outsider's perspective, I was friends with a lot of Indian people, and the Indian culture and like community is so strong at CSU, it seems.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I think that probably was like a really great starting point to make you feel comfortable enough to, explore other communities within CSU.
Exactly. What really changed was when I met Jyotsna. So she is another Indian student who was actually from undergrad. So after I met Jyotsna, I met Kritika, and that's how I met a lot of these undergrad Indian girls. There weren't many when I was studying there. Now I think there are a lot more. But when I started, most of them were master students, so I couldn't really relate to them. They were family. I did used to hang out with them a lot more initially. But once I found Jyotsna and Kritika, I started to find more and more friends through them, which is when I got more comfortable with everyone around me. Another thing that actually, I was thinking about this earlier, another really interesting thing that made me more of an extrovert, not completely extroverted, I'm still an introvert, but made me more comfortable talking to people was when I traveled. So I don't know if you know this, but I took a semester break in my third year, and I went back to India for about 8 months. And that's when I traveled alone in and around India and also Nepal. So when I was doing that, I had to talk to people, right, to survive. So doing that, just talking to people, having a conversation, that really helped me. So traveling really helped me open up. And when I came back to US in my fourth year, I was a changed person. I was more confident within myself. I was able to talk. I was not conscious around people. So that's one thing. I think traveling really helped me, open up more as a person.
That's really interesting. I do remember whenever you went on that trip, because I remember seeing you posting on Instagram about it and you being very honest about the whole experience and how there were some low points, but there were some high points too. And I really appreciated just your candidness there.
it was an interesting time. So I wanted to just jot down all my thoughts on Instagram. But yeah, I had a lot of fun that 2016, I think. Yeah, I had a lot of fun that year.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's such a valuable thing to be able to find that outlet, because I'm pretty introverted myself, but
You are?
yeah, believe it or not, I am pretty introverted. I definitely need my alone time.
Yeah.
Why I have a podcast dedicated to talking to people is kind of a mystery, but yeah, I definitely consider myself an introvert, but I've had to have those moments over the years too where I'm like, okay, how am I going to get out of my shell?
Yeah, but one thing about introverts and starting podcasts, we are really good listeners, so it works for us. We don't have to talk a lot.
That's what I like about it. I can ask a question and let my guests just go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that actually leads me to my next question I had. You actually started a podcast recently.
I did.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I started a podcast called Mentor Me Macha. So basically, since you've hung out with Indian people, do you know what a macha is?
No, I've never heard of that actually.
Oh, okay. So macha is basically slang for brother in Kannada. So I've hung out with a lot of Kannadiga people when I was in CSU. So that's where I learned macha from. But it's a pretty common slang in India, in south of India. So why I wanted to start this podcast was because I wanted to talk to a lot of people. So when you talk to people normally, you don't get to ask a lot of questions. Basically, I wanted to learn things from them, whatever they are doing. If I find something inspiring and if I find something really cool about them, about their thought process, about what they're doing, what clicks, what's their passion, I wanted to know all of that. And in just normal conversations, I wasn't able to get the same kind of information from them. It was just awkward to go up to a person and be like, hey, so what's your passion in life? So I couldn't really do that. So I wanted to talk to a lot of inspirational people and surround myself with a lot of inspirational people, successful people, really amazing people doing amazing things in their daily life. I wanted to surround myself with that. And I thought podcasting would be a good way to start talking to people like that and start having more conversations that would help me. Personally, I wanted to ask a lot of questions that I needed help with, which is why I named it Mentor Me Macha. So I'm basically trying to find a friend, a therapist, a mentor in anyone I speak to. So that's it.
That's awesome. I love that concept. I think that it's similar to my podcast in where it has that theme of you can gain a lot from listening to somebody else and really opening yourself up to what another person can teach you.
Yeah, I think our podcasts are very similar.
Yeah, I love that. And what do you think has been the most valuable thing you've taken away from having this podcast so far?
So one thing I've noticed is I really enjoy talking to people. That's something that hasn't changed at all. I thought when I start a podcast, that feeling would somehow change, maybe talking to people wouldn't be as fun to me and asking questions wouldn't be as fun anymore. But no, that hasn't changed. And I really, really enjoy talking to people and asking them questions, learning a lot from them. And also from all the episodes I've had, I've taken something from them. Like each episode, I've taken one lesson from each episode and I keep putting it in my practice, in my daily life, in my habits so that it's not going to waste. So for example, with this podcast, I've had to start a lot of things to get more reach, for getting more listenership, and that would include blogs and search engine optimization and all of that. And while I was doing that, I have a habit of doing things half-assedly. I don't know if that's a word. But I don't do things completely. I have a habit of that. It's a very bad habit. And in one of the episodes, I've interviewed a person who's an entrepreneur. So in that episode, he's like, what's the point of doing something half-assedly? And that is one thing that I keep repeating to myself every time I procrastinate these days. It's like, what's the point of doing something half-assedly? Like, why am I not following through on this? What is the point of this? So whenever I find myself procrastinating or not doing something, not giving my 100%, I keep thinking that. And similarly with each episode, I've taken some key points that I keep repeating to myself, or I try to put that in my life, like put it in my daily habits. Now I try to meditate because I think in 4 of my episodes, people have suggested that I should meditate. So, so I try to put in those habits in my daily life and actually make sure that I am being mentored by them. It's not just a conversation and I'm going to forget about it later, but I'm putting it in practice.
Yeah, I think that's really awesome. I think that having a podcast and getting to talk to different people each time you record, it can be a really enlightening experience, because I feel like you said, when you're having just a normal conversation with someone, it's a little weird to get into those deep questions without it being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So it's a good avenue to really dig into somebody's story and really, extract their knowledge in a way that's helpful for you and the people who listen to the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. But although I've started to ask awkward, deep questions even in normal conversations these days, I just feel like it's such a good icebreaker,
You're not wrong. I agree. I think it should be more commonplace to have those, deeper connection conversations. I think that's an introvert thing too, though. At least I've read that for me, I'm not really good at surface level conversations. I always want to go that next level deeper and talk about what happened in your childhood that made you the way you are today.
Oh, you know what? I have actually asked this question to a person I went on a date with recently. And he just looked at me like, wait, what? This is just a normal question, okay?
Just answer it. It's okay. This is a safe space.
I feel like a therapist sometimes, but what do you do?
Yeah. No, I think that's definitely a result of, being in that interview mindset. Mm-hmm. Because it's you really do just want to get into what makes a person tick.
Yeah. And also, I agree. It's because you could be an introvert too, because even if I go to any party or anything, I'd find this one person that I can have deep conversation with, and I would, stick to that person and talk all night. That's something I do. That's a very introvert trait. Good point.
Yeah, definitely.
So I was wondering what your process is when it comes to bringing in guests for the podcast. Do you think of a theme first, or do you think of a guest and then think of questions for them? What exactly is your process when you think of content? Yeah,
so I think in the beginning of the podcast, I was trying to do it in a structured way where I had a theme and then I picked people to fill in that theme. Mm-hmm. But I was just finding that it was really difficult to do that. I just didn't have enough people in my sphere, I guess, to fill out a whole month's worth of theme. Mm-hmm. So I decided 2 or 3 months into the podcast that I'd drop the themes and just get in touch with people that I found interesting and reach out and do the awkward Instagram DM like I did for you and be like, hey, want to be in my podcast?
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to find a method to, make that a sustaining thing.
Yeah, I was having the same trouble too, which is why I asked, because I was doing the theme and filling the appropriate person in the theme, but after a while I just stopped finding any themes, and even if I found a theme, I don't know who would be the best person to answer that. So I think I'm gonna do something similar to like find interesting people and make questions around them to bring out their personality into the podcast. I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah, and it gives you a little bit more flexibility to actually ask them what you want to ask them and not stick to your theme. So instead of like just talking about your podcast, I can talk about like your experience at CSU and like what you learned from that and being an introvert and all of that and not having to just stick to one thing.
Yeah. That's good. I think I should try that.
Yeah, definitely give it a try. I feel like it's taken a lot of stress off of it. Like, I started this podcast initially just for the fun of it, just so that I can have cool and interesting conversations with people. Mm-hmm. And putting the theme on it made it a lot more stressful for me personally.
Yeah. So you just started it for fun, or I thought you were associated with one radio podcast company?
So I am a part of this kind of, what is the word I'm looking for? I'm a part of a media company called Public House Media. So they distribute my podcast.
Oh, okay.
And I provide it and I edit it, and they kind of handle the rest for me.
Oh, okay.
Do you do yours individually? Like, what's your process like there?
I just use Anchor as my hosting website. I looked into Buzzsprout, Anchor, Sprout, I don't know. I looked into multiple hosting websites and Anchor was free, so this is why I wanted to get into Anchor initially.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've heard good things about Anchor.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. So, moving on a little bit, I'm wondering, what else do you have going on right now? Like, what are you doing outside of your podcast?
So I am actually working at a company called Urban Kisan. It's a hydroponic farming company in Hyderabad, and I am a content creator for that company. I've been working there for about 1 year, and yeah, it's going pretty well. I like what I do, and I'm also planning to start another podcast specifically wildlife related, because that is something I'm still interested in doing. So I want to make it a little more informative about all the wildlife issues that are happening in India and what can we all do on a personal level to, mitigate all the wildlife conflict, human wildlife conflict that we have in India. So yeah, I'm still working on that podcast, but this is what I'm up to these days.
Very cool. Yeah, that's ambitious to start a second podcast.
Yeah, that's why I'm wondering, I'm thinking if I can handle, 2 podcasts, 2 sets of recordings each week, which is why I'm stalling that a little, but I would definitely want to try that. And, I also want to do videos with it since it's wildlife and I could have a lot of video footage with it, which would go really well, and I really want to start traveling again. Let's see when that's gonna happen.
Yeah, right, with the whole pandemic issue.
Yeah.
How
was pandemic for you? How did you deal with it?
It has been a wild ride. I was laid off from my job pretty much in the beginning of the shutdown here in the States. So since then, yeah, it's definitely been a little challenging. I've been trying to find a new job since then. And I've had a few situations where I've thought I had the job and it was in the bag, and then it kind of got ripped out from under me. But that's just the nature of how it's been here, because there are so many people who just lost their jobs. So it's the competition right now is wild.
Yeah. So you were doing photography before?
I was doing social media management before.
Okay.
So I was basically, I worked at a startup, so I did a lot of the actual posting for our clients, and then I did some content creation too, and email marketing, kind of anything that falls under that digital sphere.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm looking for in my next job.
Okay. So you're back in Fort Collins now?
I am back in Fort Collins. I kind of made the crazy decision to just jump and figure out, a job while I'm here. And I do have some hopeful prospects, so I'm thinking that it was a good decision. But that is yet to be
and also
to be
Fort
determined.
Collins is home, so it's gonna be good.
Yeah, definitely. I'm happy already, and I think that it's going to be a nice change, even though it's a familiar place. And I think my dog's going to really like it too, because we're going to do lots of
Oh my god, I
walking.
love your dog.
Thank you.
Is it a he or a she?
It's a he. His name is Luca.
Luca. Oh my god, he's so cute. I really
Oh,
love your dog.
thank you. He is adorable. He's the light of my life.
Yeah.
What is on the horizon for you? Do you have any big goals in the future? Like, what are you looking forward to?
Oh, I'm not too sure about the big goals, because that is something that I've always been confused about. But one thing I really, really want to do is to buy a house in a place called Valparai. So that's a place I went to for internship in 2016, and I've fallen in love with that place. So I just want to buy a house there, have like an avocado tree, a mango tree, a bunch of bushes and trees and food forest sort of situation, and have a dog and chill there. So that's kind of like the big theme. But when it comes to career and all of that, I'm still figuring it out, one thing at a time. I just don't want to, because that's such a huge question that I've, put so much pressure on myself. Shivani, you need to figure it out. You're 26. You still don't know what you want to do with your life, blah, blah, blah. But I just want to, I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm doing what I like. And I know things will pan out the way I want it to be. So I'm just not going to stress too much about it. I just feel like a lot of people our age stress a lot about jobs and future goals, careers, your passion. I don't know. That's such a deep question, and I want to take it one day at a time. But the big goal is to have a house in Valparai, chill, have a lot of trees, have a tree house. So yeah, very dreamland kind of goal. But that's what I have for now.
Yeah. I think that is totally valid. I think that can be your goal. Like, I am also one to sort of leave at least my career and work life like open to possibilities. I think it's, I don't know. I think we do put a lot of pressure on ourselves to have it all figured out. Mm-hmm. But in reality, like 26 is young still. Like, you have your whole life to figure it out.
Exactly. So there's still so many ideas that we keep getting, and I've noticed that all the plans that we've made so far after college, nothing panned out the way it was supposed to be. So now I just stopped making plans. So ever since I graduated from college, I've just been going around doing all kinds of things. So I'm like, I'll just not plan anymore. Let's see what opportunity comes my way, and if I find it interesting, I'll do it. And wherever that takes me, that's where it takes me.
Yeah, I like that. I like that philosophy. It's very similar to my own.
Yeah.
So I think that you're definitely going to find your path and have that beautiful house with the trees and the dog.
And elephants. Valparai has a lot of elephants.
Oh my gosh. Can I please visit you when you get this house?
Of course. I want you to come to India and we should travel. You, Kritika, me, Jyotsna. I think it should be a girls' trip.
I would love that.
Yeah, you should definitely plan.
When travel becomes a possibility.
Yeah, and whenever Kritika is getting married.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
She'll hate me when she hears this podcast, but it's going to be okay.
No. No, I think that would be amazing, and hopefully we can make that happen.
Yeah, we should.
One of these days. Yeah.
One of these days.
One of these days, it'll happen. So to wrap things up, do you have anything you'd like to shout out, and where can people find you?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on this podcast. I think whatever you're doing is amazing. I've heard a few of your episodes and I find them super, super sweet. And it's just, it's really fun to listen to your episodes because you're getting to know this person that you're having on the show. And if I know that person, it's a lot nicer too because I'm getting to hear their voice and their stories, what they went through. So I really enjoy your podcast. And shout out, basically I have a podcast, Mentor Me Macha. So my Instagram handle is @YouShivani, YOU Shivani, or @Mentor Me Macha. I'm sure Selena will include that in the description or show notes, whatever she uses. But so you can also come by, listen to my podcast if you'd like. It's a similar theme to Selena's.
Well, thank you so much for spending some time talking with me. I know that it's kind of late over where you are, so I really appreciate it.
Nah, it's not that late. And thank you so much for having me. And it's definitely a lot more stressful to be a guest on a podcast.
Well, you did great. I really, really enjoyed our time.
Thank you. Thanks, Selena.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Stories from Planet Earth. If you have some time, leave us a review and be sure to subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts. Find us on Instagram at SFPE Podcasts. I'll talk to you next week.